God bless everybody. Today is June 12th of 2023. This is a quick Middle East update. There is a number of events that are happening out here I think you should be aware of, so I just wanted to bring them to your attention. On May 24th, I started to see these reports come out. I've been talking about this a little bit on my videos that we've got a new base in the northern part of Syria. This is a U.S.-led coalition against Islamic State. They're building this new base. I thought this was a rather interesting timing with everything going on in Turkey, that they would actually be putting up this base, and thought that they might be putting up this base to sort of quell some of the issues between the Kurds and the Turkish government and Erdogan. So I wanted to see how that was going to play out as we move forward now that Erdogan has won his election. So just be aware that we have a new base up there. It is a multi-coalition base, but it's led by us, and it is in response to this Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces, or the SDF. And like I said, I thought this would play a factor as we move forward in the Middle East, as I believe this is going to break out in the next couple months. So we'll see how that turns out. So if we go to the Syrian live map, look at the Kurds as an index, you'll see all the activity that's going on in this region today. It gives a synopsis on the right, and if you click on these different areas, it'll bring up certain areas, or if you fan over them, they'll actually bring up this text information so you can see what's going on out here. But what I wanted to show you is in the last 2 weeks, we're starting to see this ramping up. We had that political party get eliminated. Erdogan now is the leader for 5 more years. We started to see chatter out here, and I keep talking about this chatter. Number of different things are happening out here. Number of people have been eliminated or removed. ISIS is claiming some responsibility over some victories in some of these areas, and you can see where these areas are, different things like that. But what I noticed the other day is we had this reinforcement into this U.S. camp here, okay? And you're also starting to see some general reconnaissance and bombing up here in the northern. But then we had a breakout over here on the west side. So if you start moving through the last day or so, you realize that we're starting to see all these rockets being launched, different areas being attacked. Turkey's actually bombing some areas over here, and we're having these violent clashes. Now, this is extremely important because these groups are tied to the Kurds. I'm talking about how I believe this is going to break out, and this is going to cause Erdogan all kinds of problems. He's going to have to invade through Operation Claw Sword into these areas so that he can control this border along Syria and Iraq with Turkey. But I just noticed that if you keep going down here in the last 4 hours, this is starting to break out. And I'm concerned between, in my last video, I believe I had indicated between June and October, as we get into this potential 6 SEAL event in October that I've been talking about, that we would start to see Daniel 8 play out, and that is that Turkey would invade and start to drive these Kurds down to this Baghdad area down through here. So this will all collapse and basically be forced down into here, and then, as the prophecy indicates, when they get to the July River in the Elam province in Iran, which is this area here, So this is all going to collapse down into this area. And when the Kurds align with Iran, we would see Turkey come down and crush them. Now, also, I've been talking about this for a while. When he invades, he's going to invade both Syria and Iraq. And then Turkey basically has Iran surrounded. This shouldn't be a long war, and it indicates in Daniel 8 it won't be a long war. But yeah, Turkey, borders Iran. They have Azerbaijan here. They basically own Turkmenistan. They own Afghanistan through the Taliban. They control some different groups down here, which will affect Saudi Arabia. And they potentially could launch and do some attacks into Iran from Oman or maybe even Yemen. So through some of these radical Islamic groups. They also have Iraq and Syria. Once they invade and we start to see this collapse, they're going to collapse down into here, as the prophecy indicates. And you can read this in Daniel 8. There's an interpretation in Daniel 8, verse 20, as you move forward, that talks about the Medes or the Kurds and Iran, Persia, how they'll align, and that would then cause a war with the leader of the armies of the north, which is Turkey. And I think it's extremely interesting because as you start to move down here, everybody talks about how Russia is going to play a massive role in the Gog war at the end, but I've said that that's not the case because they're bogged down up here in Ukraine. Okay, Russia's not going to be a massive factor here, and actually we're starting to see bombings by Turkey against Russia. So is there a breakdown happening between the Russians and Turkey? And I've been talking for a while. NATO's pushing Erdogan right now, and the Kurdish group with the getting Sweden into NATO. I talked about how I believe Turkey will leave NATO. They are the second largest army in NATO, beyond us. So either Sweden's going to concede to Erdogan's demands, which I don't think it'll matter, or Erdogan is just going to say, you know what, I've had enough of this. I'm going to do my thing. I'm going to invade. I'm going to leave NATO, and I don't care whether Sweden, which are sympathizers with potentially the Kurdish terrorists. I really don't want to be a part of that, and so I think you're going to see a lot happening there. So keep an eye on Turkey, Sweden, NATO, and a number of these things as we move forward. But then the question is, how is Assad going to be a factor here? And he's sort of an ally with Russia. Now potentially we're starting to see these bombings by Turkish drones, and literally they're targeting Russian soldiers. So we have to watch this, and it indicates that Turkish forces are targeting Russian military patrols in these areas, and they've killed up to 12 Kurdish fighters in the last few hours, and so this is starting to heat up, and I figured it would about the time we hit June, right after the election, as I've been talking about for some time. So the other thing I wanted to touch real quick on, I'm not going to touch on this too long, is we had a massive jobs report. They can't shut this economy down no matter how much Jay Powell keeps raising rates and putting pain on us. We are not getting the numbers he's expecting, and so this is, I've said he's going to have to keep raising. I thought for a while he was going to raise this month, but now they're talking about this bunny hop, which is basically they're going to pause and then raise in July, and then they would raise in September potentially again, because they want potentially at least 2 more rate hikes, and so that's going to cause problems. There has been one indication of a pause this month, and then a 0.50 raise in July, which would be a massive raise, which would fit in with the potential collapse in July that I've been talking about around the 4th. As we watch these markets play out and we watch certain things like Bitcoin and different things struggle in this environment that we're watching right now. So we have two things going on this week we need to really watch. One is the CPI, or the Consumer Price Index, is coming out. It is hot. It's increased by 1.3% in June. They keep telling you inflation going down. That's ridiculous, and it's all based on fuel. And yes, fuel is moving down at this moment. Even though OPEC has cut barrels to try to drive the price up, the economies are slowing down so much that they're indexing this in and indicating that the price should be lower. And so this is going to cause problems for OPEC and how they're going to keep that price above the $80 barrel, $80 to $100 barrel gap that they think that they need to be in, because Brent has dropped down fairly rapidly here. So hopefully Mr. Biden will fill our strategic reserve while this is at a low point, and we can protect this nation properly, because they've drained the strategic reserve down to about half or more. So we need to watch that. But yes, this core price index, or consumer price index, came in extremely hot, as you can see. All items increased by 9.1% for 12 months ending in June. So it's going to be extremely important how Jay views this report as he moves into Wednesday and has his potential pause, and then another increase, or he may increase this month, but I think he's going to pause and then move forward as we get into July, to see how this factors into everything. But I've noticed also that the 2-year rate has moved up to I believe 4.6. So if you go out and look at some of the charts here, this is the 2-10 spread. As you can see, we have a massive inversion that keeps coming down. That's when the banks collapsed. We lost those banks, and we had that 100-point plus inversion here. Wow, it's really hard to get on there. About 107-point basis gap negative. We are right now at a 0.84 gap again. If we hit 100, we're probably going to see more bank fallouts and potential collapses. Janet Yellen's been talking about watch more consolidation happening. When she talks consolidation, that means she's going to watch more banks collapse in the near future, and they're going to consolidate into what they want is basically about a half dozen large banks running the whole show, and they want to eliminate all the regional banks or absorb them. They may leave them as name, but they're going to be under a chapter of a larger bank. So we're going to watch this cannibalization of these 4,600 banks into potentially a few players in the near future. So we need to watch that. So this is the question everybody's waiting on. This leaves the market stagnant right now. But we are starting to see potentially Bitcoin and a number of things play out here in the next few weeks. I keep talking about this Bitcoin chart. I'm going to show you in a minute. So the reserve probably won't likely raise this time, but they're probably going to raise next month. And they want to bring massive pain because they're not getting those unemployment numbers, and they're not getting that core inflation down. And even though fuel's coming down, food and other things are still moving up. And so that's playing into this factor. And last of all, here we are in the Bitcoin chart, still working through this massive resistance line that it can't seem to get around. As you can see, as you move into this chart, the head and shoulders is still playing out, at least in my opinion. I believe that we are now, where are we here? We are at 5,967, and I've talked about how it's going to drop below 20. We're going to watch it drop below this neckline here, just below this last deviation down here. So it's going to drop down below that. It's going to pop back up, and then it's going to potentially collapse down into this area here. And this could be a negative drop. As you can see, this could be a real mess as we move forward here. And so below 10,000, keep saying, could be below 1,000 before this one's over. And if you go into Doge, it's around 6 cents right now. And so this, when it hits the bottom is when you want to buy, and that's the fire sale way down here. And so let's see how this plays out in the next 6 to 8 weeks. And yes, these do move out in time, and so but I've been talking about the 4th of July for a while and how the rates are going to be affected, or he's going to raise, and we're going to start to see that play out as he moves into July here and how this is going to affect. But watch Turkey, because that's going to break out, and that's also going to affect the geopolitical potential on oil and different things like that if they have a problem in the Middle East and it shuts down some of those pipelines and different factors over there. So also keep an eye on this spread. We got a historic spread of 0.84. Yes, it has gapped out to that 107 down here, and usually when they start hitting around a 100-point basis gap negative, we will start to see massive runs on the banks, fallout or cannibalization of these banks, and destruction of banking systems. So as this chart keeps moving forward, this resistance line's going to be a real hindrance for it to even get over like 26 to 27,000, 27,500 anymore, because it's fighting this massive resistance line on a trend down as it's moving towards this apex down here. And as this drops out, comes back up, and then potentially completely drops out, we're going to watch this potentially collapse completely, or at least to a point where, like I say, 10,000, 5,000, maybe even 1,000 or below, based on the chart and how this could go negative if you look at the bottom of this chart. So I adjusted the screen. This is 0 here. You can see my down, the down potential here, which is negative, and so we need to keep an eye on all this. But anyway, watch that Middle East border between Syria, Iraq, and Turkey. That one's going to start breaking out, I believe. And in the middle of this, we're going to have all this happening as we're watching the Democrats totally attack their opponent. Trump is now indicted on 37 accounts. This is unprecedented, especially with Joe doing what he's got going on out here. I mean, they found documents in Joey's stuff about half a dozen locations and all the stuff that's come out with Hunter, but let's ignore that and let's go after Trump because they're scared of him. Even after this, he's still the front runner, and the only way they're going to eliminate him from being the next president is to eliminate him as a candidate. And so we're going to watch how this plays out. But this could be a division between the country as this moves forward. So this could be a real problem as they're trying to divide this country and turn us into a civil war here on our own ground. This is unprecedented, and it's just that time of the season. We are in the birth pains and sorrows, and when we have a nation that's failing, he gives us terrible leaders, and we have Joey as a leader now. So anyway, we won't get into the political landscape too much, but it is a problem. So God bless everybody. I just wanted a quick update. Watch things. Things are getting ready to break. The next couple months are going to get really extreme, and as we walk into October and a potential 6-seal event, as Turkey breaks out here and starts this Daniel 8 prophecy against Iran and the Kurds, we're going to watch and see how this plays out in the next couple months. God bless everybody. Find the open door, find Jesus, and be safe out there. Prep if you're not. Your time is getting very short, and so you need to do what you need to do to protect your families.